All right, today we are diving into a really powerful idea from Sabri Suby's book, Sell Like Crazy. It's a concept that's going to completely change how you think about being busy versus being monumentally productive. So let's just jump right in.
Okay, let's kick things off with a pretty shocking number. A whopping 96% of all businesses fail within their first 10 years. I mean, that's huge. It just goes to show you how tough it is out there to actually succeed. So what in the world is going wrong for so many people?
And that, of course, leads to the big question: what is it that separates that tiny little fraction of businesses that actually make it from the huge majority that just don't? And look, it's not about luck. It all comes down to a really fundamental difference in where they put their focus, their energy, and their time.
Now, does any of this sound familiar? That feeling of just being constantly swamped with a to-do list that never ends, always worrying where the next customer is going to come from? You're so caught up in the day-to-day grind that you have zero time for the big picture stuff. You're busy, for sure, but the needle just isn't moving.
And this right here, this is the fatal mistake that traps so many entrepreneurs. It's this obsession with what you could call little chores. You know, the low-value tasks. Constantly checking email, doing minor admin work, all the stuff that makes you feel productive but adds almost nothing to your bottom line. The best in the world? They are absolutely ruthless about avoiding this trap.
So, to get out of this mess, we first got to look at a concept you've probably heard of, the Pareto Principle. You know, the 80-20 rule. The basic idea is that for most things in life, about 80% of the results come from just 20% of the effort. And in business, this is huge. It means about 20% of what you do is likely bringing in 80% of your money.
Okay, but here's where things get really interesting. What happens when you take that 80-20 rule and you apply it to itself? What's the most important 20% of your most productive 20%? Well, 20% of 20% is 4%. And that, my friends, is the critical 4%. These are the super productive, high-leverage activities that generate something like 64% of your results. This is the heart of the 4% rule.
So, this is the whole game right here. Your job as a leader, as a founder, is to figure out what that critical 4% of activities is and pour almost all of your energy there. Now, the other 96%, yeah, it still needs to get done, just not by you. You've got to delegate it, automate it, or outsource it. Period.
Okay, so that sounds great in theory, right? But how? How do you actually apply this? How do you wade through all the junk you do in a day and pinpoint that golden 4%? Well, it all starts with a really simple practical audit. It's a surprisingly straightforward two-step process. First, you've got to figure out what your time is actually worth in cold, hard cash. And second, you're going to sort all of your tasks based on that value. Let's break it down.
Step 1 is just simple math. Take your average weekly income, divide it by the hours you work, and boom, that's your hourly rate. Now here's the rule. Once you know that number, let's say it's $75 an hour, you should never ever spend your time on a task you could pay someone else $20 an hour to do. Think about it. You're not saving $20 by doing it yourself. You're literally losing $55 in lost opportunity.
All right, step 2. It's time to sort everything out. Here are a few examples right from the book. Your 4%? That's the real money-making stuff. Writing great sales copy, dreaming up killer offers and promotions, building out your sales funnels, scheming and plotting your next big growth move. The 96%? That's, well, basically everything else. Checking emails, running errands, training staff, most of the meetings you sit in. Be honest with yourself and start sorting your own daily tasks into these two buckets.
And when you do this, it forces this huge shift in your thinking. To really grow your business, you can't just be the practitioner anymore. You can't just be the chef or the consultant or the builder. You have to become the marketer. Because the real money isn't just in the product or service itself, it's in the selling of that product or service. Generating revenue is now your #1 job.
So what does this actually look like? Let's look at this comparison. On the left, you've got that generic, vague corporate speak. Home Builders Melbourne. So what? It says nothing. But on the right, you have an absolutely irresistible offer. It's specific, it removes all the risk for the customer with a 120-night trial, and it just grabs your attention. See the difference? That's what happens when you focus on your 4%.
If you really want to dig into these strategies, from finding your 4% all the way to crafting an offer that people can't refuse, it's all laid out in Sabri Suby's book, Sell Like Crazy. It's a fantastic playbook for building a system that just brings in customers like clockwork.
So let's wrap up with this final idea, and it's a big one. At the end of the day, your 4% isn't really about having the best product or service. The market doesn't care about that as much as you think.
What it rewards is solving problems. It pays the people who can clearly communicate how they make a customer's pain go away. So the real question you have to ask yourself is this: what is the 4% of your time that does exactly that?
Subscribe for more actionable executive summaries, and if you want deeper insights and exclusive content, support the channel on Patreon. You'll find the link in the description.